I am Jason Matthews, and today I will tell you the story that completely changed my life when I discovered that my wife betrayed me right in my own home. The story begins on a regular morning, just like any other, when I woke up early to prepare for a long workday. As I sat drinking coffee in the kitchen, I suddenly noticed that something was off. Nicole, my wife, usually wakes up earlier than I do, preparing breakfast for the whole family and stressing about work. But today she was sleeping later than usual, and when I entered the bedroom, I saw her lying on the bed, her eyes wide open but seemingly lost in deep thought. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She didn't respond at first, just stared at the ceiling as if she hadn't heard me. I stood there for a moment, waiting, before I repeated, "Nicole, are you okay?" This time, she slowly turned her head to look at me. Her face was pale, and her eyes were distant, like she was thinking about something important but couldn't find the words. "Yeah," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just tired." I was still unsure, but I didn't press her. I walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of what was going on. She didn't even look up when I walked in, which was unusual. Usually, she'd greet me with a smile or a simple, "How was your day?" I stood there for a moment, wondering if I should say something, but instead, I decided to go into the kitchen and make myself something to eat. As I opened the fridge, I heard Nicole's phone buzzing on the coffee table. I didn't think much of it at first, but then it buzzed again and again. Each time, it seemed more urgent. Curiosity got the better of me. I walked over and glanced at the screen. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. The message simply said, "I miss you." My heart skipped a beat. Something didn't feel right. I knew I should just leave it alone, but I couldn't. I picked up the phone and unlocked it. The messages were brief, but full of emotion. "When can we see each other again?" One read. Another said, "I'm thinking of you right now." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I turned to look at Nicole, who was still unaware of what I had seen. My mind was racing. What was going on? Who was this person? I had to know the truth, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear it. I stood there, holding the phone in my hands, my mind spinning. The words on the screen felt like a punch to the gut. I had always trusted Nicole, but this was something I couldn't ignore. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how. My hands were shaking as I slowly walked over to the couch, sitting down next to her. Nicole still hadn't noticed what I was holding. "Nicole," I said, my voice barely steady. "Who is this?" She glanced up at me, her face showing no sign of alarm. For a moment, she just stared at me, as if she didn't understand the question. Then her eyes shifted to the phone in my hand. I saw the color drain from her face. She didn't say anything at first, but the silence spoke volumes. I waited for her to respond, but she didn't. Instead, she reached out slowly, her hand trembling as she took the phone from me. I can explain," she stammered, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. It was unmistakable. "Explain what?" I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. "How long has this been going on?" Nicole bit her lip, trying to hold back tears. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words seemed to get stuck. The more she hesitated, the more my heart sank. Finally, she spoke. I'm so sorry, Jason. I never meant for you to find out like this. At that moment, I realized the truth was something I wasn't ready to hear, but I needed to. I had to understand what had happened, what she had done, and whether there was any hope left for us. Nicole's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at the phone in her hands, her fingers gripping it tightly. I could see how much she was struggling with what she had to say, but I needed answers. The silence between us was suffocating, and every second felt like it dragged on forever. I've been seeing someone else, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I never planned for it to happen, Jason. It was a mistake, but it's been going on for a few months now. Her words hit me like a tidal wave, knocking the breath out of me. I felt numb, like the world around me was spinning out of control. I couldn't process what I was hearing. This was the woman I had trusted with everything, the woman I thought I knew inside and out. I stood up, pacing back and forth. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it all. How had I missed the signs? How had I been so blind? I don't even know who you are anymore, I said, my voice filled with disbelief and pain. How could you do this to me, Nicole? To us? She sobbed quietly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get hurt. I never wanted to destroy everything we had, but I felt lost for a long time, Jason. I didn't know how to fix it, and then I made a terrible choice. I wanted to scream, to demand more answers, but I could barely keep myself together. The woman I had spent so many years building a life with had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I turned away from her, unable to look at her anymore. I needed space. I needed to think. The weight of her confession was suffocating, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. I walked to the door, my mind racing, my heart in 1,000 pieces. I needed to get out of that room, away from her, away from the memories of everything I thought we had. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there in that moment. Jason, Nicole's voice cracked, calling after me. I didn't turn around. Please don't leave like this. We can talk. We can figure things out. I'm sorry. I swear I never meant for this to happen. Her words felt like a distant echo, like they were coming from someone else. It was hard to reconcile the woman I loved with the one sitting on that couch, admitting to something so hurtful. I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. I stepped outside into the cool air, feeling like I was drowning. My chest tightened, and for a brief moment I thought I might collapse. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we had built together? I walked aimlessly down the street, not sure where I was going, just needing to escape the suffocating pain. I had so many questions, so many thoughts swirling in my head. What did she feel for him? How long had this been going on? Why hadn't she come to me before it went this far? I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the deep wound in my chest that was getting harder to ignore with each passing second. Part of me wanted to just leave, to walk away and never look back. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, was screaming for answers. I had to go back. I had to know if there was any hope for us, or if everything we had shared was truly gone. I don't know how long I walked, but eventually I found myself standing outside our house again. I hadn't even realized I had returned. My mind was still a storm of emotions, but something inside me knew I had to face her again. I couldn't keep running from the truth. I took a deep breath and walked back through the front door. Nicole was sitting on the couch, her head in her hands, crying softly. She looked so broken, and in that moment I almost felt bad for her. Almost. But the hurt I felt was still too fresh, too raw. I stood there for a second, not sure what to say or how to begin. Finally, I spoke, my voice much quieter than I expected. "Why didn't you come to me, Nicole? Why didn't you talk to me about whatever it was that was missing? Why go to him instead?" She looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. I didn't know how," she whispered. "I thought if I kept pretending everything was okay, it would fix itself. But it didn't, did. And then I couldn't stop." Her words cut through me, but I couldn't let myself feel sorry for her, not yet. Not until I knew what she was truly feeling, what she really wanted. I took another step toward her, still unsure of what to do next. "Do you still love me?" I asked, the question hanging heavily between us. "Or have you fallen for him?" She took a long, shaky breath before answering, her voice trembling. "I don't know anymore. I'm so sorry, Jason. I've made so many mistakes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you can understand that I never wanted to hurt you." The silence in the room was deafening. I didn't know if I could understand. I didn't know if I could forgive her. But deep down, a part of me still wanted to believe in us, wanted to believe that we could fix this. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe it was just hope hanging by a thread. But for the first time in a long time, I found myself wondering if we could rebuild what had been broken, or if it was too late. Days passed, but the weight of Nicole's confession never left me. We tried talking, tried figuring out how we got here, but the more we spoke, the more the distance between us grew. Every word felt like it was just another brick added to the wall between us. I kept asking myself if we could ever get back to what we once had, but deep down, I knew the answer. The trust was gone. The bond we shared had been shattered beyond repair. I tried to hold on to the hope that somehow things could heal, that the love we had could survive this. But with each passing day, it felt like I was only fooling myself. Nicole moved out after a few weeks, staying with a friend while we worked out the details. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt empty. The silence between us was suffocating, and I couldn't stand being in that place anymore. The divorce was finalized after a few months. It wasn't messy. There was no fighting over property or money, but the emotional toll was far worse than anything I could have imagined. Nicole apologized countless times, but each time it felt like a hollow gesture. The damage was done, and no amount of words could fix what had been broken. When the day finally came and the papers were signed, it hit me harder than I expected. I thought I would feel relief, like a weight had been lifted, but instead there was just an emptiness I couldn't shake. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, had slipped through my fingers. We saw each other one last time after the divorce. She was standing on the doorstep, looking as lost as I felt. Neither of us said much, just exchanged a few awkward, empty words before I turned and walked away, knowing it was the last time I would ever see her in my life. As I moved on, I tried to focus on healing, on rebuilding myself, but the scars from what happened would always be with me. Nicole would always be a part of my past, but now she was just a memory, one that would fade with time, like everything else. And that was the hardest part, realizing that some things can never be fixed, and that love, no matter how strong, isn't always enough to keep two people together. We value your opinion in comment section. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.